Okay, we're live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to our weekly edition of Fit for Change. Now, today we're going to be diving deeper into psychological safety. Why and how do we embed psych safety in our workplaces? And why is how we're going about it not really working? So my name's Kris Thorne. I'm a facilitator and coach, and I work with Fee Hills from Mind Nudging AI, and our mission is to help you to speed, scale, and sustain mindset and behavior change across your organizations. Now, one of the key elements to get anything to work in our organizations we know is psych safety. And there's a lot of information out there about that. And people are really wondering, well, how on earth do I make this work? How do I make it a reality instead of a hope in my organization? And we're going to talk to you today about 4 barriers and 4 means, if you like, to make this happen. So firstly, well, what are these barriers? Where is it all going wrong? So firstly, we are overwhelmed by information. We are drowning in information on how to do things, how to change things in our organization. And the thing is that, if information, just sending people on courses or giving them more resources was the answer to our skills gap and the problems we face in our organizations, we'd probably be there by now because there's so much of it. And we also need to shift from just regurgitating the old knowledge, the old ways of doing and thinking about things, and dare to question that, find new ways of creating that new knowledge in the moment. And because the thing is if you're not open to questioning how you're doing things, how you're trying to go about changing things in your organization, you're really a sitting duck for disruption to come along and upend things. And rote learning, I mean, the thing is that rote learning is like a bit like trying to cram for an exam, and we try and memorize the information we need. We think we're solving, skills gaps by giving people information in the flow of work so they can quickly access a course to, deal with a specific situation, maybe a difficult conversation. And whilst that learning can be useful, the challenge is that it's short term. It doesn't last. It's only there to solve the immediate need, and it's gone shortly thereafter we put it into practice. So we need to embed it in a longer term way going forward. And finally, really, in linear mode. Sorry, I've got my points out of order. Is that there's an obsession that training should be done a certain way. Okay, we organize courses, we structure them, we put them in a set order. And the thinking there is that, if we take everybody through the same knowledge, they're going to come out the other end with the same knowledge. But that's not really how it works in practice, because everybody learns differently and everybody needs something different in order to apply and really embed that knowledge. And I know in particular, old knowledge is a pet subject of theirs. Is there anything more you might add on that point for us?
Well, hello everyone. First of all, old knowledge is definitely not my pet subject. New knowledge is.
Well, fair enough.
And more to the point, as you know, Kris, how we develop it. And really, I guess what we're talking about here when it comes to psychological safety in the new, when I say new world of work, we call it these things in an era where exponential change is very real because of AI and because of other technologies. And that speed of change, how do we actually create a safe environment in that type of environment? And more importantly, how do we keep up with creating new knowledge that is relevant to what we need as a business? How do we get our people to do that and feel safe enough to do that? So the bottom line, you need psychological safety because you want to create that new knowledge. You want to innovate and you want to make people perform at their best, let's say, in every way, shape and form. So new knowledge creation is one of the, I think, biggest challenges for business. And it's the not knowing. So when it comes to old knowledge, we don't know what we don't know. So we carry on. Yeah, see what I mean? So we're carrying on with this sort of old knowledge. And the problem is you only find out it's old knowledge when you have been disrupted. So it's too late. So that's why we have to think critically and question every bit of knowledge, whether it's relevant, whether it any longer applies, and therefore we start to create new knowledge that's relevant for today in a very agile and iterative way. So yeah, it is my pet subject. Should we move on?
I mean, look, we talk quite a lot about a massive need for a paradigm shift. We need to change fundamentally some of the ways that we are thinking and doing, not just psych safety, but any form of change in culture and mindset transformation in our organizations, because really, in order to shift people's behavior, it does start with their thinking. People sometimes think that the how is just, well, we're going to teach you a new skill. And it's not just that. There's a lot more to it, isn't there, Fee?
Yep. So the paradigm shift, this might sound like we said it really quickly and go paradigm shift. Well, let me tell you, this is massive. Whilst we're saying the 4 critical steps here for fostering site safety in an AI era, we are actually talking about the whole culture and behavior. So, of course, we've started with site safety for the very reason that it does lie at the foundation of all of it. Change, learning. If you can't get that right, you've got a massive challenge to try and transform or manage culture, a good culture. So within this paradigm shift, the question is how do we make the paradigm shift? So we all know we need one. And the question is, how do we do one? How do we make that happen? And these are the 4 things from all our R&D so far. And it has been a long time. It's been 4 years, 2 years of which have been on the AI side. And it's been intense and it's been a learning curve. So the huge amount of research that went into this, we can assure you that if you do these 4 things, these 4 steps really help to create that paradigm shift in cultural terms, and certainly for site safety. So that is going from information. So we focus too much on information. So we're throwing information at the problem. So I tell you how, if you do site safety like this, or I give you a model, that's what we mean by information. I'm giving you a good way, a pre-described way of doing something, but it's in information form, or it might be a bit of interactive stuff. So what we're saying is you need to transform that information to transformation for subjects like mindset, behavior change, culture change, even if not for the skill. That does not mean that information is not important and critical in this day and age. We all know it is. So the second thing is, of course, Kris very well, is shifting from that focus being on the trainer to the focus of the design of the learning being on the learner. So learner-centered. They call it student-centered as well. So that needs to happen as part of the paradigm. Thirdly is pretty much, we've called it sort of format obsessed, but I don't know if that's a fair description. It's quite hard. It's a difficult one because they call it blended learning, this type of effect where we have, say, a workshop, do some digital learning, mix it up, it is a good idea in a linear world, but we don't live in a linear world, and therein lies the problem. See what I mean?
Definitely.
Sorry, did you want to add something there, Kris?
No, I think you pretty well covered that, really. I think the key thing is, as we said before, if information, if just giving people the information was going to work, I mean, it would be working, but it's the application. That's what I find that people struggle with. I think people actually like to gain and consume, if you like, new knowledge, but it's the putting it into practice that we find challenging and we don't always find enjoyable. And so we've got to find ways to make that an enjoyable and also make it relevant to people, personalized to them, and getting people to create and share new knowledge together is a far more effective process. I mean, you and I have found that when we're trying to brainstorm something, the way we spark off other people, it's the same thing. We need to think differently about how we are delivering that information to people.
Exactly. And so moving on to that sort of the blend, how that's changed, which we're going to break it down in a minute anyway. So this sort of idea of the perfect blend, again, we call this the perfect blend, is part of that transformational process. So in other words, we move on from information to transformation, but the question is, how do we do it? And we do it through trainer-centered, focused on design. We do it through the perfect blend, which is not the same as it was. How it used to be this blend of a lot focused on formatting. So do I give a digital piece of learning, or do I give this? Whereas now it's much more about the mind. So it's, how do I blend introspection with social learning? That's the blend we're looking to do during transformational look. It's blending, but it's blending in a different way.
And and why is introspection so important? I think it's because, I mean, as a practice, not everybody knows. I should say knows. Not everybody embraces lifelong learning, I guess, as a process. And the learning is when we reflect upon things, and moreover, when we start to reflect, that's when we start to recognize where we have actually made a change or made progress. And when we see those changes happening, it kind of lights a fire in us, doesn't it, Fee? It gets us a bit more enthusiastic because we start to see, hey, this is working for me and I want to do more.
Yeah, and I think many people are now, to be fair, they are discussing reflection. I hear it a lot now. I don't know whether you do. Whereas we didn't hear that like 10 years ago, not in learning or change.
I think with all the training I've done, it was always beaten into my head, really, that the learning is in everything I've been taught, I guess, as I went through my retraining to be a coach, was all about reflection. Everything had a reflective process tacked at the end.
And that's maybe why, because there is so much coaching that, this idea of reflection. One of the issues is that we have to build it in an AI world. We have to build the introspection as you're going about your day. So it can't be saved up for just when we have coaching sessions. Okay. So this is, again, a linear approach. If what we do is wait to have a coaching session and build in, okay, so what's your reflection on this? And I need a coach to do it. We need to learn the skill to do it ourselves as we're going about our day. That should be par for the course of every learning design. Because if we wanted to take a transformational approach, then we sort of a learner-centered approach, then we sort of have to look at experiential learning. And if we look at experiential learning of observe, reflect, adapt, repeat, then the learning is in the reflection. So how do we build that in without doing it in a sort of jerky, or the rack and stack, which we get to number 4, which is the rack and stack idea? How do we move from that to continuous learning and ensure that introspection, the perfect blend, with social learning for the creating new knowledge and all the other things that social learning is good for? How do we do that? This is what I said. Someone, I think it was a lady, made, quite rightly so, a comment saying that in the introduction, want to get down to the nitty-gritty. Well, there's something about this nitty-gritty which is right. We do want to get to the how in these things, but this subject couldn't be more complex if it possibly tried. Culture, behavior, and mindset change in the current era needs a whole new paradigm shift. It isn't just a case of throwing technology at the problem, or even throwing AI at the problem. God forbid you do that without the right thought, because we're dealing with people's minds, and that is a very serious subject.
Yes, it is.
So anyway, so I'm having a little bit of a preach there. So the soapbox.
This is an important point to make, because I think people are very quick. We get distracted by the shiny thing, don't we? Because there's so many new cool things that we can do with AI, and obviously it's a massive time saver. But it's like any technology; it's not the technology; it's the methodology and the thought process and the mindset that goes into how we use these tools.
Yeah, so you hit on that. It's not, first of all, it's not, although this particular session is not about that, but it absolutely should not be led by the technology. It should be led by the methodology. And that's when we start to look at paradigm shifts. We're looking at methodology and process together, and then we add the technology. So it's methodology. What did I say now? Let's add the technology. I forgot. It's Monday morning.
Methodology is going to lead how we use the technology or leverage the technology.
And process. So this lack of process kills us in, when the drive is continuous learning and we lack in process and system. And that's not technology led necessarily. It's much more than that. So we have to be able to have this. We built Mind Nudging AI as a platform to make this happen. To be fair, we're not hiding that fact. But based on all this stuff, to be able to say this is a process. as much as it is a technology, and what goes into it is a methodology that is far different than is based just on information. By the way, just to say, no one's saying information isn't important in learning. I watch YouTube all day long in the background when I'm working, if I'm not in meetings. No one's saying trainer-centered can never happen. Of course it can, but it needs to happen in balance. And nobody's saying that we don't balance some digital learning formats. But when we're talking about mindset, behavior, and culture change, which when it comes to psych safety, that is what we're talking about, then we need to shift that to all of this different paradigm. And that includes other things, other subjects, things like growth mindset, and other such cultural and behavior-led skill, if you like, rather than hard, rather than what they call hard skill. God knows why they call this soft skill anyway, but they do. So anyway, so Kris, moving on to one to drill down. So we're drilling down now. Now, I think, Kris, you mentioned they're going to get an infographic.
Yeah, so every day this week, just as a great follow-on to our live today, is that we're going to be releasing an infographic every day from Tuesday to Friday, I believe. And you can follow the page. I've tried to put the link in the chat, but for some reason, StreamYard is being a bit awkward. So you want to follow the Mind Nudger AI LinkedIn page, and we'll be releasing a post with the infographic every morning this week to really drill down into these concepts so you can see them. And, because there is a lot of information to remember here, to be fair. And we know with any learning, you need to see it more than once. You need to see it in different formats, hear it, read it, consume it differently in order for it to sink in. So that's why we're doing these fantastic infographics.
So yeah, so this isn't an infographic here. What we've done here is turn the infographic into just some easy words so you can read it on the screen. In a video format, infographics, they don't really read very well. No. So just turned it into a few 8 points that will be made into have been made into an infographic. So as we got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the infographic is on these 4 steps. So one a day, so you can digest them with a post. Anyway, you can DM Kris Thorne or Fee Hills, and if for whatever reason you can't find Mind Nudger AI, we'll send it to you. It's not a problem in your LinkedIn box. Now, so down to transformation. So there's 8 points to transformation. So what you can see is that we're zooming in on each step. So, and then next week, what we're going to be doing is zooming in still further and drilling down to each bit via video. So we're changing the format as well each week. Sorry, Kris, go on.
No, go ahead. I mean, you're right, because people do need to consume information in different mediums, different formats. But really, what we're trying to get at here is to help you get an understanding that these concepts, although it might seem quite glib and simple and high level when you see them on, a page or an infographic, there's a lot to them. There's a lot of depth here. There's a lot of getting your head around certain concepts sometimes, and it does take time to embed that.
So I do believe we're coming out with a paradigm shift in September, paradigm shift journey, so we can make that paradigm shift in an experiential way. Meantime, let's get on with this. So first, transformation, information to transformation, making that shift for mindset and behavior change. So creating new knowledge. This is what the must-haves. These are sort of 8 things that either they allow us to do or must be in place. We must then engage emotionally to make this happen. In other words, to make the shift to transformation. Reflection. So we must include introspection work. Feedback loops if possible. That's a little bit more difficult on this one, just for learning. When you've got it in a continuous learning, you can do it via AI and things like that. But also that does include sort of cultural stuff, like with the leader, managing the people and leading the people. So feedback loops include sort of in work as well as learning. But of course, when you've got the learning, that can also be done via the leader or the sort of team coach. The next one is empower its autonomy. So these are absolute must-haves if you want to move to transformation. Collaborative learning, so social learning, AI tools to individualize the process. So when we're moving to transformation and when we're making this sort of learner-centered, effectively what you want to do is individualize the not the experience, but the need, the learning need. So it's them at the center. What do they need or need to know that they are missing? What concepts are they missing? So it's not the same as information-based AI tools that go, you like this particular, almost like Netflix, whereas I like this and then I get given more of that, or I need to know this information, so I'll give you more information, which is very much out there at the moment. We also need to individualize the process of what concepts are people understand in each particular subject matter.
Exactly, because like for, just taking an example of if you want to develop something like emotional intelligence, for people to have, perhaps conversations with their people at work, one person's understanding and where someone is, I guess, on that journey is going to be very different to someone else, isn't it? So it's not just a case of going, oh, well, we're going to send all our leaders on a course on emotional intelligence or difficult conversations. It's understanding for each individual person. Okay, so if these are the concepts, if you like, that we need in order to be emotionally intelligent, to genuinely be empathetic, to genuinely care about people when we have conversations, where are the gaps in your understanding or your mindset shift? And that's a very different shift than just your skills gap, because we don't want people to just embed a skill because, oh, I learned this on a course, and if I say these things, then that's going to work and they're going to feel like I'm being empathetic. We want to genuinely help them to make the mindset shift so that they really are empathetic. They really do care about their people, so that it just becomes second nature. That's when you really know that you have long-term transformation, because the behavior has become just a part of who they are and what they do. And that's really what mindset transformation is about, isn't it, Fee?
It is. And we got 3 more to go through, so I'm mindful of that. I've just seen the time. That time goes really quick, doesn't it, that 30 minutes? So the execution. Now, the big thing about transformation and information is different execution. Now, I know there's more involved in it, like learner-centered and all that. But basically, when you move to transformation, you achieve the execution of learning. That's the ability to take the learning, what I know, a model, and be able to execute it unconsciously, if you like. It's in my habit. Yeah. Sorry, say again.
No, it's moving to what we call unconsciously competent.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
We do it without thinking, which is really the ultimate goal of any learning.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And we get there. We get there with that. So trainer-centered to learner-centered. I won't read them all out because they will be in the infographic, obviously, in a nicer format than this. But so factual information, things like this, predetermined, unidirectional, extrinsic motivation, completely moving on to learner-centered is completely the opposite. So factual information turns to interactive and experiential. So hold on a minute. So interactive, flexible and adaptive, multi-directional, intrinsic rather than extrinsic, and so forth. So what we're looking at here is completely the opposite. So when we're talking about learner-centered is literally putting the learner at the center of the experience. What we're talking about in terms of design is fundamentally looking at things like immersive learning, experiential learning. These are the things that achieve learner-centered experiences. Very much about facilitation rather than training. So that's the easiest way of saying it. It really is facilitation, except it can be gamified. So you're looking at gamification and so forth. That makes sense. You got anything to add there, Kris?
Well, I was going to say, and the other thing as well is that, it's about learning to evaluate and create that knowledge together. As we said, it's there. Yeah, we probably would set the scene, give a bit of context. So there's some information, but then it's down to the learners to make sense of that, to apply it, to make it fit their scenario, and to really merge, if you like. And really it's about taking ownership as well, isn't it? It's because they're taking an active and autonomous role in creating that knowledge so that it applies to them.
Yeah, and they're much more likely to, aren't they? If they're active participants, they're bringing their stuff to it, aren't they?
And we know people will be more likely to buy into a change if they have co-created it themselves.
Correct. So number 3 in that how, if you like, from a very high level, as I said, next week we'll be drilling down into detail on the how, so we'll get a bit more practical. So number 3 is the perfect blend. Now, I don't know whether format obsessed was a very fair description of that, but it doesn't matter. What I guess what we mean by that is combining. When you think about blend in a sort of linear fashion, we think about, I do a workshop, then I might add some digital content, or I might put some coaching in. It is very linear in its blend. When we think about this type of blend, we think about the balance between oh, I've got it here, actually. Look, I can read it from here. Isn't this fantastic? Combines online and in-person sessions. So this is the actual normal way we think about blended learning. Tailors content to individual learning styles. Again, won't go into the science about that, but basically that's great. It's good for the experience, not so great for the outcome. It sort of makes no difference. And also, that is not the priority in the AI world. When we're living in exponential change, moving too fast to worry about that. And I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but in all of the new learning stuff that we've got going on, like immersive learning and what will come with virtual reality and stuff like that, we don't even need to worry about that, because that's inevitable with all of the beautiful technology being developed and all of the innovations coming out. So interactive tools and things like that. So they're all happening. They're absolutely all happening. So the difference, what we're talking about here in full mindset and behavior change, is reflection through introspection and experiential sort of tiny interventions. So nano nudging, we call it nano nudging, we call it mind nudging. They're two different things, but the same method. And individualizing transformational activity and mind games. So again, we're looking at a type of micro learning, sort of gamification. Why? Because we need to do it on the go. It's continuous learning. So it's something learning in the center of work. So to do that, we really have to think about the blend in a completely different way, because it wouldn't work. Otherwise, it'll be very linear and therefore wouldn't create that learning organization.
And the thing is that linear learning, whilst it's good in some scenarios, I mean, sometimes we do have set procedures for things people do need specific knowledge. The thing is, it doesn't allow a lot of room for creativity and innovation, which is really what we need in an AI world. And I was going to say, I see a comment here that's just popped up from a LinkedIn user saying, I'm really interested in this bit because conventional surveys or personal behavioral psychometrics are not measuring how someone thinks, and the methodology is flawed if understanding the uniqueness of the learner. Unless tools measure cognitive capacities not based on self-reporting or analysis, then those needs are not accurately measured. Interesting.
Yeah, it says LinkedIn user. There's no name there. I don't know why that's given us. It's presenting in sort of StreamYard like that. Mindful of the time, it's 28 minutes past. Should we go 5 minutes over? Do you mind?
Yeah, I think we do. And do you have anything to say to that comment? I mean, it's
Yeah, I think it's well. I think it's very brilliant contribution, should we say? It's not just a question. So really interested in a bit of conventional surveys and personal. Absolutely. I used to design this stuff, assessment. That's my background, and psychometrics and all that sort of good stuff. And we do that now, like on My Nudger AI, is done as nano nudging, and it's I can't say. Don't know why it's Monday, isn't it? Iterative. So it's got to be an iterative process. So it's not so much about whether the assessment is like that. It's how that's integrated into the whole thing. So we go back to that blended process. How does that integrate in? And right, assessing wise, well, the beauty of what we can do now is doesn't have to be linear, because what I'm feeling there is a bit linear.
Oh, welcome. She's put her name in the comments.
Oh, hello. Oh, Andrea Burns. Hello. I know that name from the years past. Hello, and welcome to this Monday morning, very confusing session that's taken me a bit of time to warm up for the week. I don't know. It's Kris, you're all right. So, but this is a really good point. So all I can say is how we've changed it based on what we can do with technology and AI. And then we've designed something called Concept Pyramid, AI Concept Pyramid, which that is how the machine has a, say, psychological safety looks like this with 500 concepts or whatever. And then what it will do is it learns what good looks like. It will then start to initiate an understanding of each individual that comes through it and be able to provide a map of what concepts they understand and what they don't. And that's what we're talking about with individualizing learning in the true sense of the word. Now we can do that because of AI. Before, we could not do that. So we're not saying, hey, this is brilliant. We're saying we can only do it because of Mike Hassani invented the sort of concept pyramid. So if that answers your question, let me read it properly. Hold on. Understanding the uniqueness of the yes, so it does. So the way we do it, and I'm quite happy to send another infographic, do like an infographic of the AI concept pyramid. You can see what it looks before, what it looks like, and that is how you measure true understanding of a subject. Because there's a difference between knowing, of course, we know that, and understanding. So it's embedded and I can execute it. That requires a much deeper level, and that's absolutely not something you want to be doing through surveys or even psychometrics. Definitely not, because I'm not saying it doesn't give you any data, but the data will be out of date by the time you get the data. This needs to be integrated into a process where it's very iterative. So no one should ever have to answer 20 questions at the same time of any survey, any psychometric when it comes to learning. Does that make sense? Goodness me, we've gone over.
Because they're a snapshot in time, really. And the problem is that things move on, don't they? Where you are tomorrow.
Bottom line, you need the analytics. And without it, you can't do this. And that's why you need the AI and not just the software, nice software platform. So that's why everybody's talking about AI and different types of AI. And we can only talk about our type of AI, to be fair. We're not experts on anyone else's. So I don't know if that answers your question, but the last thing is what's called Rack and Stack 2, continuous learning. I'm not going to sell continuous learning. We're all talking about continuous learning. But real-time feedback, integration into the flow of work, concept personalization, which is, Andrea, to be fair, this is what we're talking about. This is what you're talking about. So what we're talking about. Concept personalization. How do we really truly assess understanding so that we can personalize the continuous learning journey so that we're not all sheep dipped into learning something we already understand for a start in any subject? Because bear in mind, any subject you go into, you do already, for crossovers, have hundreds of concepts that you do understand about that subject. Metrics and progress, we need those analytics, we need those metrics, we need to see where we are every step of the journey. Collaboration, micro-learning, and tech utilization, AI analytics. Now, Andrea, some of you took the time to contribute, which we really appreciate. Have you had your question answered or not? She may have had to go to work. And also mindful, we've gone over time. So I'll leave it to you to close the session off. And I want to say thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Indeed. And I mean, as I suppose that, there's quite a lot of information that we've given you here today, which is why the infographics are going to be so great to just kind of take this away, digest it, have a think about it. Andrea says you've measured it in part. I think perhaps maybe, Andrea, it might be good to have a conversation with you, maybe off, outside of the link of the live, and we'll dig deeper into that. Just to pull this to a close, if you want the infographics, which I highly suggest you grab, follow the Mind Nudger AI LinkedIn page, or if you can't find that, DM myself or Fee, and we will send you that link or send you the infographics. And then next week, join us, because we'll be digging into the practicalities of those paradigm shifts in terms of, okay, how do we actually make those shifts? How do we go from information to transformation, from trainer-centered to learner-centered, really digging deeper? It's a bit like a Russian doll. I know people often want you to get to the tiniest doll right from the start, but in order to get there, you have to really kind of unveil or understand each layer of knowledge and that as you go. So that's what we're doing. So we'll look forward to seeing you all next week, and have an amazing day. That's all from me.
Thank you very much. And hello, Kris. Thanks for watching. One thing I would say is, Andrea, if you want the whole concept pyramid sort of slides and stuff, DM me and I shall just ping them over to you. And I think that might help to answer your address, if you like, something you need to know about. So we'd like to make sure you end up knowing about that, at least from our own knowledge perspective. So please do that. And anybody else got any comments on what we feel we should be adding? Again, we're going to go deeper into this next week. So thank you very much. And thank you, Kris, as well.
Thank you. Well, and thank you. I see we have a comment from a Christopher Farnath who says this is a fabulous subject. So thank you very much for that comment, Christopher. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
All right.
Have a fabulous week. Bye.
Bye.